There was a time when a dripping faucet or a sluggish drain never meant calling a plumber. Your grandfather just walked to his toolbox and handled it himself. After 3 decades in the trade, I can tell you that most of those old fixes still work beautifully today. In this video, I am going to walk you through 7 forgotten household fixes that deserve a comeback. And stick around for number 7, because it involves beeswax. And most people have never even heard of it. Plus, I have a bonus tip at the end that ties all of this together. The first forgotten fix we need to revive is repacking a leaky faucet valve stem. If you have an older 2-handle faucet, the kind with separate knobs for hot and cold, and you notice water seeping up around the handle when you turn it on, the problem is almost never the whole faucet. It is the packing inside the valve stem. Your grandfather knew this instinctively, and it is one of those repairs that seems mysterious until someone shows you just how simple it really is. Here is how it works. Behind that handle, there is a nut called the packing nut. When you tighten the handle, that nut compresses a small ring of material around the valve stem to create a watertight seal. Over the years, that packing material wears out, dries up, and water starts to sneak through. The modern instinct is to rip out the whole faucet and replace it with something new. But the old school fix is so much simpler and costs almost nothing. First, shut off the water supply under the sink. You will find small oval-shaped shut-off valves on the hot and cold lines. Turn them clockwise until they stop. Then open the faucet to relieve any remaining pressure. Remove the handle, usually just one screw hiding under a decorative cap that you can pop off with a flathead screwdriver. Then use an adjustable wrench to carefully unscrew the packing nut. Go slow and be gentle so you do not scratch the finish on the faucet body. You will see the old packing material wrapped around the stem. It might be crumbly, flattened, or just worn smooth. Pull it off. Now, take graphite packing string, which you can find at any hardware store for a couple of dollars, and wrap it clockwise around the stem. About 3 or 4 wraps usually does the trick. Make sure each wrap sits tight against the last one with no gaps. Tighten the packing nut back down, reinstall the handle, and turn the water back on slowly. That tiny piece of string just saved you $150 or more on a brand new faucet. Your grandfather probably did this a dozen times over the years and never thought twice about it. The second forgotten fix is clearing a drain with a hand crank snake. Somewhere along the way, people started pouring chemical drain cleaners down every slow drain in the house. Your grandfather never did that, and for good reason. Those chemicals can eat away at older pipes, especially if you have galvanized steel or even certain types of copper. They also do not actually remove the clog in most cases. They just burn a small channel through it, and the blockage builds right back up within a few weeks. What your grandfather reached for instead was a hand crank drain snake, sometimes called a drum auger. You can pick one up with a 25-foot cable for around $20 to $30 at any hardware store, and it will last you a lifetime if you take basic care of it. Here is the technique. Remove the drain stopper or strainer so you have a clear opening into the pipe. Feed the end of the cable into the drain slowly. When you feel resistance, that is your clog. Start turning the crank handle clockwise while applying gentle forward pressure. Do not force it or you risk kinking the cable. The tip of the cable will either break through the clog or grab onto it so you can pull the whole mess out. For bathroom sinks and tubs, the culprit is almost always hair wrapped around soap buildup. You will know you have snagged it when you feel a rubbery, heavy resistance on the cable. For kitchen sinks, the blockage is usually grease that has solidified in the trap or just beyond it. The beauty of this tool is that it physically removes the blockage instead of just dissolving part of it and pushing the rest further down the line. After you pull the snake out, run hot water for a good 2 to 3 minutes to flush everything through. Keep a bucket and some old towels handy because it can get messy, especially with hair clogs. But that mess means the clog is out of your pipe and not sitting there waiting to cause problems again next month. Clean the cable with an old rag before you reel it back into the drum, and give it a light spray of oil to prevent rust. The third forgotten fix is one of the simplest repairs in all of plumbing, and I mean that sincerely. Fixing a running toilet by bending the float rod. If your toilet keeps running after you flush, that constant sound of water trickling into the bowl, the problem is often nothing more than the water level in the tank being set too high. In older toilets with a ball float, there is a brass or metal rod connecting the float ball to the fill valve. When the tank fills up, the ball rises and the rod pushes down on the valve to shut off the water. Simple mechanical genius. If the water level is too high, it spills over into the overflow tube and the toilet never stops running. You are literally sending water straight down the drain 24 hours a day, and your water bill shows it. The fix takes about 5 seconds, and it is something your grandfather could do in his sleep. Lift the tank lid and set it somewhere safe because porcelain cracks easily. Reach in and gently bend the float rod downward just a little bit. Maybe half an inch of bend is all you need. This lowers the point where the float tells the valve to shut off, which lowers the water level just enough to stop the overflow. No parts to buy. No trip to the hardware store. No tools required, though a pair of pliers helps if the rod is particularly stiff. Flush the toilet and watch carefully. If the water stops rising about 1 inch below the top of the overflow tube, you are in perfect shape. That is exactly where the water level should be. If it is still running, bend just a tiny bit more and flush again. Your grandfather would adjust this every few years as the rod naturally shifted. And now, so can you. If you have a newer toilet with a float cup design instead of a ball on a rod, the same principle applies. You just squeeze a small clip on the side and slide the cup down the rod about half an inch instead of bending anything. By the way, if you are finding this advice helpful, you should know it is just a small sample of what I have put into my new guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It is packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let us continue. The fourth forgotten fix is stopping a pipe leak with a hose clamp and rubber patch. This is a true old-timer emergency repair, and honestly, it is one of the most clever things I have ever seen done with basic garage supplies. If you get a pinhole leak or a small crack in a copper or galvanized pipe, your grandfather would not have panicked. He would have walked to the garage, grabbed a piece of rubber, maybe cut from an old bicycle inner tube, or even a thick rubber glove, and pulled a standard hose clamp out of the junk drawer. Here is the method, and pay attention, because someday this fix will save you from a a flooded basement. First, dry the area around the leak as best you can with a rag. Cut a piece of rubber large enough to cover the damaged spot with at least 1 inch of overlap on every side. You want good coverage so the seal is solid. Wrap the rubber tightly around the pipe centered over the leak, then slide. The hose clamp over the rubber and position it directly over the damaged area. Tighten the clamp with a flathead screwdriver until the rubber compresses firmly against the pipe. You will feel the resistance increase as the rubber seats itself. The pressure from the clamp forces the rubber into a tight seal against the leak. And just like that, the dripping stops. Now I want to be clear about something important. This is not a permanent fix. It is an emergency repair designed to buy you time. But it can hold for days, weeks, or even months in low-pressure situations. It gets you through the weekend, through the holiday, through whatever is keeping you from doing the permanent repair right away. Keep a couple of different size hose clamps and a small sheet of rubber in your toolbox at all times. When that emergency hits at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and no plumber is available until Monday, you will be very glad you did. The fifth forgotten fix is silencing noisy pipes with wooden shims and pipe straps. If you hear banging, rattling, or hammering sounds when you turn water on or off, your grandfather had a straightforward explanation for it. The pipes are loose and they are moving when water pressure changes suddenly. This is especially common in older homes where original pipe straps have rusted away or where pipes run through oversized holes in floor joists that have dried out and expanded over the decades. That loud bang you hear when a washing machine valve shuts off, people call that water hammer, and it is not just annoying. Over time, it can stress joints and cause leaks. The fix is wonderfully simple and uses materials that cost almost nothing. Track down where the noise is coming from. Usually it is in the basement or crawl space, wherever you can see exposed pipes. Look for pipes that are visibly loose, hanging without support, or sitting in holes with noticeable gaps around them. For pipes running through joists, take a wooden shim, those thin, tapered wedges of wood that come in packs of a dozen for a couple of dollars, and gently tap it into the gap between the pipe and the hole. Do not force it too tight, or you will create a stress point on the pipe. You just want to snug it so it cannot rattle back and forth. For pipes running along walls or underneath joists, use pipe straps. The simple metal or plastic brackets that screw into the wood and hold the pipe in place. Space them about every 4 to 6 feet for horizontal runs, and make sure you match the strap size to the pipe diameter. Most residential water lines are either 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch. If the pipe is copper, this part matters. Use a strap with a rubber lining or put a small piece of rubber between the strap and the pipe. This prevents electrolysis between dissimilar metals and also cushions vibration, so the fix actually lasts. A handful of shims and a pack of straps from the hardware store cost you maybe $5 total, and suddenly your house is quiet and peaceful again. The sixth forgotten fix is thawing frozen pipes with rags and hot water. Every winter, especially in northern states, people discover a pipe has frozen and immediately assume the worst. Your grandfather stayed calm because he knew that a frozen pipe, if you catch it before it bursts, can be thawed safely and gently right at home without calling anyone. The key word here is gently. Never, and I cannot stress this enough, never use a propane torch or any kind of open flame on a frozen pipe. That is how house fires start. I have seen the aftermath more than once in 30 years, and it is devastating. Instead, use the old rag method that has been passed down for generations. First, open the faucet that the frozen pipe feeds so that water and steam have somewhere to escape as things thaw. Then wrap old towels or thick rags around the frozen section of pipe. Pour hot water slowly over the rags, letting them soak and transfer heat gradually into the pipe wall. Not boiling water, just good and hot from the tap or heated on the stove to a comfortable temperature. The rags hold the heat against the pipe much longer than just pouring water directly would, and that slow, steady warmth is exactly what you want. Keep a bucket or pan underneath to catch the runoff so you are not creating a puddle. You can also use a hairdryer on a medium setting as a backup, moving it back and forth along the frozen area so you heat it evenly. Always start thawing from the faucet side and work your way back toward the frozen section. This is important because as ice melts, the water needs somewhere to go. If you thaw the middle first, expanding steam and water get trapped between two ice dams, and pressure builds dangerously. Once you get a steady stream from the faucet, let the water run for a few minutes to make sure the whole line is completely clear. Then take note of exactly where it froze and insulate that section with foam pipe sleeves before the next cold snap. A $2 sleeve now prevents a $2,000 burst pipe later. The seventh and final forgotten fix is one that truly amazes people when they see it for the first time. Sealing a leaky pipe joint with beeswax and string. Before Teflon tape existed, before pipe dope came in a can at the hardware store, plumbers and handymen used beeswax and cotton string to seal threaded pipe joints. And here is the thing that surprises everyone. It actually works remarkably well. You take a length of cotton string or plumber's twine and coat it thoroughly in melted beeswax. You can melt the wax in a small tin can set in a pot of simmering water, just like a double boiler. Let the string cool just enough to handle without burning your fingers. Then wrap it clockwise around the male threads of the pipe, pressing it firmly into the thread grooves as you go. Make sure you wrap in the same direction the fitting will tighten, so the string does not bunch up when you thread the joint together. When you assemble the connection, the beeswax and string compress into the tiny gaps between the threads and create a surprisingly tight, waterproof seal. This technique works best on low pressure lines, like drain fittings, garden hose connections, and other non-critical joints. I would not recommend it for high-pressure water supply lines, where modern sealants are the right choice. But for that annoying slow seep at a garden spigot or a basement utility sink connection, it is a beautiful old-world solution that gets the job done. You can find beeswax blocks at craft stores or hardware shops for just a few dollars. The cotton string is even cheaper. There's something deeply satisfying about using the same materials and the same technique your great-grandfather would have reached for and getting that same solid, reliable result over 100 years later. And now for the bonus tip that professional plumbers swear by. If you take one thing from your grandfather's approach, above all else, let it be this. Keep a small, dedicated plumbing emergency kit separate from your regular toolbox. A coffee can, a small plastic tote, or even an old tackle box. works perfectly. Put in a few hose clamps in different sizes, a small sheet of rubber, a roll of graphite packing string, some Teflon tape, a couple of wooden shims, a tube of plumber's grease, a stubby adjustable wrench that fits into tight spaces, and a small flashlight. When a plumbing emergency happens, and believe me, it always does, and usually at the worst possible time, you will not waste precious minutes digging through drawers and garage shelves while water is spraying. Everything is right there in one place, organized and ready to go, just like your grandfather always had it. That little kit is honestly the difference between a calm 5-minute fix and a stressful, expensive disaster that ruins your evening. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, The Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you have not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next one.